o'clock. I call the meeting to order. Rick, I want to do some roll call for us, please.
We have Tom DeBee.
Yep.
Arlene Zortman.
Yes.
Josh Stransky. Glenn Pepper.
Yes.
Carrie Snow.
Yes.
And staff we have Molly O'Donnell. Here. Lisa Gallagher.
Here.
And Kendra Daniels.
Let's move on to number 2, approval of minutes from November 14th, 2023 meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Second. Great. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? None? Okay, motion passes. Going to number 3, public desire to be heard. Number 4, organizational updates.
We don't have anything listed on the agenda, but we do have a couple things that we wanted to mention. For since this is the last meeting of 2023, we do have on the calendar so far the same schedule for 2024, the second Tuesday of the month at 9. Just want to confirm everyone's good with that. And then ask the question. The reason that we move these to rotating at the properties is so that the public could come. That has not necessarily been the actuality. And when we need to do hybrid meetings, it's a big challenge to set up. So we wanted to ask the group, we could hold these at the Civic Center in a conference room and have a hybrid option all the time, or we could keep it at the properties and still do hybrid ad hoc when we need it. It's just a coordination challenge. We don't have the setup everywhere.
Would the public log in virtually as well? That's an option for us.
And they could come to the city center. I mean, they would have to go somewhere anyway, so, yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm all for Civic Center as well, just to make it easier for anybody that needs to log in virtually, and then also the public, we might even have more comments from the public if there's an option for it. I just want it available to them to make it easier for them to also find instructions. That's it.
Well, the other thing is if it's always at the same place, it's easier for people to remember that too.
Right. Rather than keeping track of the.
Yeah.
And there's if somebody from another property comes here, they have to figure out how to get in, and so we're just going to bring that to the group and let you decide. Sorry,
We were just discussing about the next meeting, what it means for 2024, having it at the Civic Center, rather than putting on the properties, since we have to be getting a big
That's space for you.
I think it'd be different too if we weren't doing the coffee and conversations. So there's that also where people can, make it and share their input if they don't want to. You can go online or find one of our meetings too. So I think with that in place, I'd also say that City Center is a good idea.
Okay. So she'll send out updated meeting invites.
With the Teams link for anybody that wants to join hybrid.
Okay. All right.
Number 5, development and project updates.
So the big news is we closed on Village on Main on Thursday. So I've been sleeping quite hard since.
Congratulations.
Yeah. All in all, closings are always crazy, but this one was definitely our smoothest yet. Katie had a setup. So much was done in advance, and it was really like working through it all rather than cramming it all at the end. So it was really a success, I'd say. So thanks to everybody and A&B. It was great to work with, and everyone it just went very smooth. So we're kind of in a downtime. We're letting our contractor order stuff, and then we will start right on January 16th. Start work January 16th with our first move-outs. The relocation team has been working with all of the residents. They're doing their one-on-ones with them right now. And we're working out ways to give everybody as much flexibility as possible, like moving into a unit instead of a hotel if we have it and it works out. Meaning we don't want them to move into one that's not yet renovated. So if they have one that's open that we can do that. We went and did the project-based voucher lottery there last week. So there's 18 project-based vouchers going on to those units, which we did an open lottery just for residents. And so that is going to be pretty great for some of those residents. That is just long-term security, and it helps the property operationally. And so they have not yet been notified, right, of the selections.
Are being drafted today by Tracy.
Okay, so they'll be finding that out this week.
So did you have a good turnout from the people applying? Enough to get the 18?
Oh yes, we had
Okay.
more than that. So there's probably about 15 getting a denial that they were not accepted. So
Okay.
And it was totally random lottery system. So everything with Village on Main as the official new name is running right along. We're excited to get started. Excited for this little lull over the holidays and then get started. For other items, for Ascent at Hover Crossing, right there, we were awarded, so I think that we've mentioned that the city, from its ARPA allocation, has set aside so far $525,000 for the Early Childhood Education Center. We need $3 million. So there's $525 from the city. We applied for $750,000 from Worthy Cause. We were awarded, but $150,000, but it's still something. So we're up to almost $700,000. And then we still have DOLA Strong Communities Grant outstanding, and they are supposed to be notifying like any day. So we're hoping to score on that. And we have, we're working with the Longmont Community Foundation still to see if they can help. They want to help, but does their financial mechanisms that they have access to work with a light tech project? That's what we're trying to sort out. So the project is a go. We were awarded tax credits for that, which is on the first go around. Quite awesome. I can't believe it, really. So it is very clear that from the list of awardees, just remember that CHAFA was oversubscribed by about 4 times on LIHTC, which shows that there's just really not enough resources out there for what people are even ready to do. And so we need Prop 123 to really kick in, which it seems to be kind of trickling and slow and not opening up new programs right now, but I'm hoping for January. And then we also, the Boulder County voters approved the affordable housing tax too. So when those funds are available in 2025, hoping that stuff can all backfill this LIHTC problem that we have. But still doing these projects without tax credits is still a huge, self-funding it basically with those other resources is still a big deal. But it is clear from the awardees that if you don't have some sort of unique service model or there were several with early childhood education centers attached, or the only other ones that didn't have one of those two things were like the phase 5 of 5. They're just closing out, really wrapping it up with a bow. Other than that, if you didn't have something unique, you were not selected. It really was clear. So going forward, thinking about our projected projects down the road, we're going to have to come up with some really good stuff, or I expect just wait. We're going to keep trying and trying until it works, or there's more fun. So that is great news, but also gives me a big, strategy, thoughts about our strategy going forward. Just trying to get really, really creative. So on Ascent, the idea is to now design is in full force now. It is moving forward. We will fund this ECE one way or the other. We're just piecing it together. It will happen. And then the idea is to close in about July of next summer and start construction, which will take about, I think, just shy of 2 years. So maybe it's 18 months. I have to double check. They're nailing all that
So you're
down.
waiting on DOH. What do you think the gap funding would be for the ECE?
Right now we need, what did I say we're up to, 700? We need $2.3 million. Yeah.
That's a little more than I expected.
Right. We applied for, what did we apply for the strong communities? I'd have to look it up. I can report to it at the end of the meeting. And then we know that the Longmont Community Foundation wants to give $1 million, but they are brand new in trying to set up kind of a program like this, and they are really needing it to be a revolving loan fund to keep it going. But that just doesn't work for LHAAB. It needs to be basically a forgivable loan or a grant of some sort. Having to actually pay it back is just not realistic. So we're seeing what we can work with them. We're going to circle back in January and see what we can figure out.
So do you actually have a vendor on hand for early childhood?
Yes, it's Wild Plum Center. We have an MOU with them, establishing what we want. I know, and nothing is fully formalized, but it's at least an MOU so that everyone knows what we're working towards. But yeah, they've got multiple locations in Longmont. They pretty much only serve CCAP or Head Start families. They're very established, and they've got a good relationship with the city, and it's been going really great so far. And we only have room for 3 classrooms, and so it's most likely going to be focused at the youngest children, because 4 and 5-year-olds there's more options out there, but infants to 3-year-olds, or maybe infants 1s and 2s, are harder to find. And so we're seeing if we can focus it there. It's interesting. It's a 2-story building, which is a challenge with infants because you have to make sure they're on the ground floor, or else you can't have an elevator because they have to crib them out in a fire, any sort of emergency. So it's all of those things. So our LHAAB developers are getting a good taste of childcare licensing right now. So, but it's still in the works. And as other funding sources come out, we'll go over them too. We have until July.
No, it's very nervous. $2 million. It's doable.
I think so too. With what's out there, piecing it together, and having the LHAAB awarded and having $700 already in the bucket helps those other sources want to just help you finish. So that's the scoop with those.
What's the deadline you need to have that funding kind of
By closing.
By closing.
2024.
Yeah, the tax funds on the,
Right.
but that's the key. Do what they should be doing.
Yeah. We have not, and that's really just from the housing team out there looking. We haven't even looped in human services yet.
Sustainability.
Yes, all of these, there's other groups to talk to that we just kind of went through the ones that we, first go. What else do we have? So our other properties, we've got the Royal Mobile Home Park. That's just land banked at this point for a future project. We have our first land donation from the city's inclusionary housing program proposed. It's going to go to council in January to see if council accepts it. And so the city will, just like Royal, the city will hang on to that for a period of time, but then the idea would be to eventually transfer that to LHAAB and do something there too. So we're going to see if that comes to fruition in January. It is about a half an acre on right behind the bingo alley. So it is an area that already there's Thistle and In Between are operating on that street. That is a challenging section of the city with folks, but I think what we would look to do is something more like, it might be a townhome product or something for families, not necessarily single occupancy, just to not have too much concentration right there. So we'll see, but it's a very developable site. It's an easy site to build on, which is important. So that is proposed, and we'll see what happens. So we're land banking, which is really great.
So the city currently owns that then?
If council approves this as satisfying their inclusionary housing requirements, then they will donate it to the city. The city will own it. And then with the idea of transferring it over for development. I feel like I'm missing.
CPWD, please.
Oh yeah, we sold the CPWD building. November 30th, right on the day that we planned on it. And like 4 business days before Village on Main closed, which was a little bit longer, but it was completed. We did, we updated all their ADA compliance issues before we sold it, including redoing the parking lot. And then we actually have to go back and do a fix there, because we gotta make one van accessible space. But we did everything because the VCA, our compliance agreement with HUD, listed items for that property, and we just, because the people they serve, it was the right thing to do. We had funding available through the CV grant, and then we could also close out that property completely on our VCA here at the end of this year. So that happened. We were told that the Veterans Community Project is not currently in a position to buy 1228 Main. First, a number of reasons. They're not necessarily, if they took on Briarwood, they're not necessarily ready to take on permanent housing. They are really in that transitional housing segment of work for their clients. And also the building might be too big. They, with hybrid work and everything, they might need something smaller in the long run. So that is on hold, if not off the table at this point, which is okay. We'll figure out another plan. For now, they're going to continue leasing until they kind of figure out what's going on. They got hit with construction costs skyrocketing, would hit their tiny village pretty hard. So they just want to focus on getting that completed. And there was one more. Zinnia. Zinnia is going vertical, and that's our latest update, right? Their Element did another very similar project to Zinnia in Boulder, and I think they're just about fully leased up. Or they're
going through lease up.
They're going through lease up, but they're not done. But they're learning a lot of lessons that we're going to get to benefit from once we're leasing for Zinnia, which will start here probably in like the spring.
Yeah.
Start prepping for lease up for that.
And
Crispin 2, I need to get an update. They are switching over to an income averaging project, and they've been working on getting all the approvals to do that with the investor team and CHAPA and everybody, and that is going fine. But I need to get an update from them on that 4th building, because it has not gone vertical yet. And they're starting lease up as well. Mm-hmm. So they're going to phase in lease up. So they're going to do it while that 4th building is still in construction. I'm worried about their downward adjuster on credits, and so are they. But I need to get an update on the construction side. We haven't been able to touch base with them yet.
I was on a meeting with them about a week and a half ago, and they were waiting on a couple of temps CFOs. They said it would be coming hopefully in the next 30 to 45 days.
Okay. So they have laid foundation, and they started wood framing. So the infrastructure and foundation, they started work in June, and they just started vertical at the end of November. So it was a good 5 months or so of.
They had to move utilities.
They had to move a lot of utilities. Mm-hmm. So.
And any update on the attached service provider?
Recovery Cafe.
Yeah.
So we have a meeting set up with them for next week with Harold to go over their plan. We think that they're getting a lot of positive reaction to purchasing a property on Main Street, in which case they would build there for their main office and then do a satellite service at the suites. And so the meeting next week is to talk about that service model and when they can get started, and because they've put something together, and we're going to start nailing down what that service model looks like. So. Cool. Mm-hmm.
What about the potential partnership for that First and Main project?
So the First and Main, the transit station one. Yeah. So it looks like that is going to be, they're going to satisfy their inclusionary housing requirements on that site, which they're hoping for on-site provision of it and not be in lieu, but we'll see. It's not gonna be LHA on that site at this point. But we do have the Royal site, which is about 2 blocks away. And so we'll be focusing there. They're gonna focus on that site.
When is that scheduled? Like, when are they projecting that start?
It is very, very early. It is a massive, massive project. It's like 400 units.
Yeah. Monster.
It's huge.
So there's
It's only on one, the residential's only on one side.
there's legislation currently
Yes.
for a state tax credit for TODs, which could be very beneficial for us.
Yeah.
Down the line, if that goes through.
If they include affordable housing in it.
Well, it would be
Just
money
generally.
for any TOD,
Okay.
but that would be if it's 100% affordable housing.
It will not be.
Not them, but
Yeah.
us.
Us, right,
Yes.
for Royal.
For
That would
Royal.
be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be,
so-
that's what I'm hoping for. When we start digging into Royal, we really look at TODs or some sort of unique model. Maybe, I was gonna look at new market tax credits too, just to see what might be a potential for that one.
Is that the property where they have a big substation?
Royal?
Not at Royal. There's a substation behind
The cheese and
the cheese importers, and that is the Miha site.
Okay.
The Miha site would be right in front of the substation, which we have not heard anything on very recently. The transit-oriented development it's first in Maine, so that's 121 Main. So the transit-oriented development is on the north side of that street. So there's gonna be a lot going on in that whole area, which is why we're not rushing on Royal, because A, we got some things we can sort out for a bit, but B, we want to see what ends up really happening with that, and then they're looking at like a master developer arrangements to see if exactly, like how could we tap onto something that's already, if it's that big, it's going to be big time development, and maybe they would want to do more the whole area broadly. So we're just watching and paying attention at this point.
You mentioned the townhome, the half-acre site needed to be in townhomes. Would that be for sale then?
No, well, we haven't gotten far enough to see anything, but if it goes to LHA, then it would be rental townhomes. The only reason why we say townhomes is just to, for families and to mix up the unit type that's on that block, just to make sure that we've got a mix of incomes and size of households and such. Because that is this site, if it was 2023, that site would not actually qualify for the inclusionary housing, because the way we built it into code is we don't want to concentrate, over concentrate. And so we base that on QCT. So in 2023, it's in a QCT, and so therefore they would not have been eligible to use that site for inclusionary housing donation. But in 2024, it's removed, which blows my mind, frankly. But in 2024, it meets all the requirements. So, but, in my mind, there's a balancing act. Don't want to concentrate, especially in an area where we're already having a lot of neighborhood problems with unhoused folks, just very much all in that area. But then, on the other side, we don't have a neighbor issue to raise esteem. It's a very developable site. It's near transit. It's near job opportunity. There's a balance. I don't want to over-concentrate either, but I also want we either get it or we don't get it. We can try and put it in other neighborhoods. This site is incredibly unique that it is completely deconcentrated from at least income restricted, except for this area, but it has no neighbors to raise a stink. And so, in my mind, there's value to getting something actually built without having a big public
Fight.
uproar. Yeah. So you gotta just weigh all the factors.
Has LHA ever done for sale?
Mm-mm. And that's something I think that we've talked about like rent to own as a way to transition into that, but LHA's never done strictly for sale. And if so, then it might just stay with the city, if that was would be the idea. But that would break inclusionary housing rules because they're supposed to get the units.
What if it's to another affordable provider? Does this allow the interest?
I mean, we could certainly do any of that. I don't know about this, but we're way early.
Yeah.
But I think if we were going to give it to another rental provider, it would stay with LHA. Thistle has done affordable for sale because they're involved with Blue Vista, so we could maybe do that too. But it's all options to weigh in the next year.
Yeah, I think we just said it's kind of out of our wheelhouse too.
Sure.
We do rentals and I guess anything else on the middle income housing authority?
It's been quiet. So the city submitted our letter on November 15th saying the city would not veto to a project that looked like this. And the developer is supposed to resubmit with those parameters and then see if the MIHA board approves it. We don't expect the MIHA board to even meet until January at least. So we haven't heard anything yet. I am just keeping in touch with the developer just to make sure you keep chatting with us if anything you need to talk through any of this, but we're basically waiting until January to make sure the MIHA board is going to accept a project like this. So what we said, the basics of what we said are, in exchange for not receiving tax revenues on 80% units, we would want a fee paid to LHA to cover the unique services that we provide, which is access to our service coordinators, access to our public safety relationships, and all of the things that the city LHA partnership can bring to a project. And we want some 70% units because the way the middle income housing authority was set up does not perfectly fit Longmont. And if we're going to do this here, middle income to us is 70% units. So that may not fly, but we try, and we have data to back it up. So we asked for that. We asked for some sort of benefit to LHA in exchange as a swap basically for losing tax revenue on what is market units here. Right of first refusal if the state ever sells these properties, like if the MIHA program, because it's so new, just they decide they're not going to do this anymore, that the LHA can have first right. There are things like that is what we included in this proposal to say that the city wouldn't veto. And really the only reason they wouldn't veto, because it's still great to have a development on that site and bring people downtown, but it's no property tax on what is market rate here. So that's the trade-off. That's why we were really negotiating hard on some of those aspects. So, all right, that's all I have.
Number 6, items for input from the LHA Board of Commissioners. A is meth lease addendum.
Hot off the press this morning. 8:22.
So you have a draft in your packet, and this is with some revisions that came in just this morning.
I printed two. I printed two. As soon as they came in.
So you printed the ones with your comments and I've turned the ones without, so it's perfect.
So then we want,
No, or maybe the ones with the comments are in the agenda, and then this is the one she sent this morning.
okay.
Perfect. Because we're just gonna go off memory with our revisions. We met with Christy on Friday and discussed some of the revisions that you see highlighted in the packet and the additions that we made. Number one being getting in the unit to replace the batteries every 6 months when necessary. We're really hoping that it's longer than that. The next highlighted, residents shall notify management immediately if the meth alarm detector emits any noises her alarms. So I ensured Christy that it would not make a noise, but she wanted to put that in there just in case, just to CYA. And then Lisa had a great comment to add regarding the day the unit was tested and actually named. And then at the bottom you can see, you know, where everyone has to sign in an initial. So pretty straightforward addendum. Any questions or additions?
So our plan is, what's our plan for using these units, assuming the battery stuff works out?
So right now we are testing, so let me back up a little bit. We got a new detector with a new platform, meaning new everything as far as the technologies moving forward. We put that in a hot unit at the suites, and it's running off alkaline AA batteries, and I've had to go twice now. So what's great about the new data set is that I can see the battery voltage going down, whereas the other ones, you couldn't see anything. It was just, it automatically went inactive. So what's interesting about this is Harold and I talked, because I said, hey, this is the second time, we were told that it would be about 14 months or 10,000 cycles of sensing, but due to our understanding after meeting with Dan is that we really think that it's draining the battery because it's trying to connect. There's a connection issue with the carrier. So the ultimate plan is that we want to send our SIM cards to them. So our SIM cards are in there for the LTE network, which we believe is with a new platform is going to be the solution. So on that note, Harold decided to move forward with, and we're still on a holding pattern because of this issue that we need to meet with Dan, and it's been pushed up I think till the 20th to meet with New Zealand to talk to him about, you know, what we're seeing here. I've been communicating with him each and every step of the way, trying to just let him know, hey, this is what we're seeing. But Harold wants to purchase 28 of these to test at the city level in the bathrooms, at the Memorial Building, at the senior, basically every public restroom, rec center, library. So we're stalling because we're hoping that this connection piece is the real reason we're having the battery issue. Because if we have 28 of them in the city facilities, I mentioned to Harold that I might pull my hair out. That's going to be a little bit difficult to manage.
You should make into that one.
Yeah,
Shoot
right.
batteries, yeah.
Right, that's exactly. So he does have Doug's Fight with Risk helping on this project, and the other piece of this is that we met with a remediation company out of the Pueblo area that has moved to northern Colorado, and they're rock stars. The meeting that we were in with them, they are just very adamant about their process and how they're getting 0.5 or below with just using heat and water versus demoing everything. And the woman that she got online with us, she was down in Pueblo. She's like their lead, and she's very knowledgeable. So we met with them, and Harold had Doug walk them for bids for a few of the bathrooms to clean them before we put the meth detectors up, and not getting a baseline of knowing what anything might read. So that's in the works as well. We're still waiting on that bid to come back. But pretty amazing process for when, you know, they're describing it versus tearing everything out, and the success that they've had down in Pueblo Housing Authority. They work very, very closely with them.
So we're gonna test them out with one unit at the suite. We just got our bid in, so.
So we got our bid
Oh,
for
so
the
you got the
clean or
bid?
bid for,
The cleaning.
okay.
Oh, you did? So that means we should be getting that soon too.
So, and it was basically the same price as what WeCycle had their cleaners bid. So,
Do they have much of a waiting list, or can they get those and agree with it?
well, since they're starting a branch up here, they think they can get us pretty quickly. So
And the unit, that unit specifically was really low anyway, it wouldn't have had been down.
Correct.
So Sarah, are we the first ones to use these meth detectors, or have other places used them because of the problems we're having?
Several places have used them, and they've disclosed that they have a couple of Colorado vendors, and I believe Jefferson County, they haven't disclosed exactly who. And I actually have comments from, they're not a housing authority, but it's pretty similar to a housing authority in New Zealand, that they wrote great comments that they've had no problems, so I really believe it is a carrier connectivity issue.
So Sarah, so when we buy these units for them, do we have to also lease their IP to process the data? So are we gonna have like an ongoing thing with that as well?
Yes.
Okay,
We'll have an
gotcha.
ongoing cost, and it depends on how many we buy.
Okay.
But basically, Harold negotiated some, especially with the city side, he negotiated some ongoing costs due to what we will end up getting, so.
So, yes, my question then is looking over the draft, and I mean, these are pretty much similar. If I'm wrong and it's in this, then just let me know. But you know, we talked a lot about like the notice issue, which this is great. You know, that everybody's gonna see this, get notice of what's going on. But I was just thinking, if I was a resident reading this, I think I'd be a little concerned if there wasn't like an actual list of what chemicals we were like looking or testing for. And I just feel like, gosh, you know, I'm not making meth, I'm not cooking meth, but I'm so, you know, I don't want to set this off. And then I, you know, sort of thought like the chemicals used in manufacturing, I mean, it's why people cook meth, right, and make meth. They're so easy to get. Like the red pea, the red phosphorus, like they're in fireworks, and there are many reasons we don't want fireworks in houses, I get that. But they're also on the tips of matches. You know, like people buy massive amount of matches to cook meth. Or iodine. I mean, you know, this is like stuff I have in my house. And I guess I just don't have a clear enough, obviously pseudoephedrine. And now that all those cold medications are going to be yanked off the market for essentially being ineffective, there's all sorts of information saying that pseudo is going to, you know, come back in a big way, though it is being regulated, but more people are going to rely on it. So I guess my concern is with these sort of common household things that people use to make meth, you know, are the detectors testing for those? That'd be my first question. And then my second question is, you know, it just seems like it'd be really hard to enforce, like in what the residents agreed to in number 4. It says you can't use or add like any chemical, right, that's used in making meth. And again, I mean, that covers cold medication, it covers matches. So I guess those were kind of my two concerns. It just comes back to like, I just want people to feel like safe and comfortable and they're not worrying, oh shoot, you know, I don't want to get busted for lighting a match in my apartment.
2 clarifications. First, this is not going to be attached to everyone's lease yet, because it's only going into clean units. So basically, new tenants will have this attached. We can't do this for people in progress on their tenancy.
Sure.
So then, secondly, it's a little tricky because the chemical that the detector is testing for is proprietary.
Right, I read their website. It's very sparse, and yeah, because they're applying for trademarks right now, both in New Zealand and internationally. Those are really difficult. You have to be really careful to cover your butt if you're a company, because if you give away too much of the information, that really reflects better than your copyright, your trademark, whatever you're going for.
So we could put
that's
some
tricky.
chemicals that are known to be in. I don't know how to address that actually and be specific enough.
I would say that is not an issue due to the fact, like if we were to do an inspection, well, let me back up. We haven't seen anyone making meth except in the one pot.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're doing the one pot, they're gonna have still minimal chemicals.
Right.
So that is because of the meth is almost all the meth now is coming in from Mexico. I'd say 98%. So we do not see the issue with people making it here. And I think it's discretion. Like if I saw, it's all about what you're looking at. If I went into an inspection and saw some kitchen pots, some chemicals, some batteries, some matches. Like, I haven't seen that in years. We have not, as in the city of Longmont, seen that in years. We've seen some one pots in a backpack in a car, but I think it's literally, like, I love your idea of listing the chemicals in it for people to be aware.
Right.
But I don't think unless we go in and see an enormous amount of these things.
That makes a lot of sense to me, that it would be discretion, because of course it'd be silly if you were, going in like, are those matches by your camera, how dare you? But when you have a document that people are signing, like, I just don't want people to think like, but it does say in there, X, Y, and Z, and I could get evicted, or I'm not sure if I'm, doing things correctly. I'm just, if somebody asked me to sign this, that's what I'd be worried about, because I wouldn't want to mess up. Like, I wouldn't want to set off the detector and create more work for the manager, for LHA, or forcing to jeopardize my passing.
I guess I read it, and I get your point there, but I, as a resident, if I was reading this, the last couple of sentences of that second paragraph, where it talks about if there is an alarm notification, then there's further testing, and they'll verify it, they'll bring in a professional company. So as a resident, I lit a match and somehow that set it off, I can rely on them actually doing further testing rather than just booting me out, because it talks about further. That's how I read it. So
yeah, that's a little right.
Most tenants don't read their leases.
Well, that's
I mean, when I do lease signing, I'm like, this is you won't cook now. Okay, they sign it, and then they lose their lease.
No, I think it's the lawyering background. I just get, I worry about signing things. I think people need to worry more about signing things.
And we have an addendum that talks about the consequences of meth use.
Well, we have like our crime free.
Yeah,
like
so this is like separate of that.
But it might be like, add that second paragraph, we might want to say if, you have those 3 positive tests, it would lead to an eviction.
It could.
Or, good.
Doesn't always.
Okay.
Depends.
The last paragraph, where they identify, said what we're trying to say.
Well, I think, most people who are probably, a lot of people would just basically be judgment proof in this situation, but it's just saying that they agree to indemnify and hold harmless, which means that they technically, the LHA, so we'd be able to recover from them for all costs associated with, like, the cleaning. With litigation, with the attorney's fees, I think are specifically listed in here. Court costs, it just doesn't happen a lot, but I think it's important language to have in there to, first of all, to realize how serious it is, and if there is a way for the LHA to go and recover, they should be able
That's
to
the
have it.
idea.
So I'm probably way off base here because I'm not a lawyer. But I know this just is a little confusing to me. And one of the reasons is the lawyer fees. I know in the eviction court, you can't write into a contract that I can seek lawyer fees from you, but you can't seek them from me. It's illegal to do that.
Yeah.
So that, when I read this,
it's different for different courts and different areas of law. I think because this is part of the agreements, sort of upfront in the lease agreements, you can have that language, and you'd have to ask the city attorneys and make sure, but I'm pretty sure if they're okay with it,
And
they would
their fair house, Christy wrote this.
Yeah.
And really, this is damages that LHA would incur because of your tenancy, not necessarily just eviction fees.
No, I understand that. The thing that caught my attention is one of the new laws is you can't put into a contract.
That's what I was thinking the same thing, just to make sure, because that's now so new and fresh.
You often can't recover them in litigation, and you may be right. I haven't looked at it the most recent thing.
It just grabbed my attention.
No, for sure, that makes a lot of sense.
So it's worth, we can just ask Christy the question, like making sure that this, I trust that Christy keeps all this new stuff in mind since we've been talking to her about it so much, but let's just make sure we can answer to this really clearly.
So if somebody does test positive and go through the rigmarole, testing the other stuff, you might evict them, could evict them. What is a plan for these individuals? You're going to kick them out. Are we going to give them resources? you know, to either get clean, or is there something available that we can refer them to? Rather than
So-
skip them?
Yes, but that's not necessarily the property manager position.
Right.
So, yes, as a city, we have been doing that outside of Lisa.
Oh, you know,
That's where I
I
kinda step in.
completely understand that, but it's just like, I just don't wanna keep these people out of the street, because then you're creating a lot of problems with the city as well, right?
That has
Yeah,
been
that
the
is-
crux of this whole issue.
Yes.
You keep people housed, but then you are putting their neighbors and the property management and the property itself at risk.
Yeah.
How do you,
It's a balance.
it's a balancing act. So there are resources, and we are going to utilize Recovery Cafe once they're in to try and make referrals, but it's officially outside of the LHA bounds. We're now moving into city.
Right.
So we can, and at that point, I mean, to be quite honest with you, at that point, I mean, we have a property here in Longmont right now where they're literally moving these folks in, and I don't know what to tell them. Because I know that they're moving in people that are using meth right now, and that's their choice. And then they end up learning that they're the problem, and then they end up being evicted. So and it's just to your point, when you're using meth, you're most likely using fentanyl right now. So it's the ups and the downs, and it's really, I mean, to be quite honest with you, people have to hit their rock bottom. And sometimes it's moving out to the street and being homeless is their rock bottom. I mean, that's the reality of it.
I was gonna say, we've had some evictions for meth, and it was a whole team effort, you know, I looped Sarah in, if there's kids involved, we looped who needs to be looped in way before. We have resources for them, you know, it's something we don't handle, but we make sure that there is something beyond us to help navigate the next steps.
I think a much better connection than ever before due to our relationship. So,
During this conversation, I'd like to suggest that maybe on a quarterly basis, we review the reasons for evictions we've had over the quarter.
So-
Not individual cases necessarily, but just.
We've only had one meth eviction, and that is because, I'm sorry?
It have to be meth. And we got the one we had court on Monday for, which was pretty interesting. When I sat there and listened to the discussion with the judge. I just think it would be interesting on at least a quarterly basis, we find out why we've got tenants that try to take action on it.
And, yeah, a lot of it's, rent payments and stuff, but I think, yeah, we could go through why the situation and how many notices we sent, or, you know, kind of the background, just so you guys can see kind of what we're going through. And
Yeah, especially with Sarah, you know, pointing out that a lot of people are moving in who you guys can like a general feeling of or knowledge of, you know, they've maybe abusing meth. You know, if you already have that information, like, oh shoot, you know, there really might be people who are going into either lease places or just be friends with the person who's leased. I mean, it seems to me that it has to be a massive uptick, or at least an uptick, right? And people who are going to get thrown out. And so it might just, I don't know, might be helpful to have that information as we go forward. I think sort of quarterly.
And
Kind of,
recall
that'd be helpful.
that we've only had one eviction for actual meth.
Right.
And when we don't put that into the eviction, they can go and be housed anywhere else. And we are passing the buck on to now somebody who may not have the resources that LHA has to manage this.
Yeah.
So that's the crux of the problem too. That
You know, that's an interesting point, because one of the things we do in eviction court on every case is try to convince the landlord to let us waive the eviction.
right.
So it's not on people's records, because you have the other side of the coin.
Yep.
You get people who don't have stuff on the record, they're homeless and they're back in
Right.
the city's problem.
that's why when we go to court, we sit there and there's some that we are we can suppress, or no, we cannot suppress. You know, I'm very hard on that. I have it like, if we have any suspicion, we know there's drug use or anything that would affect another landlord negatively, we try not to suppress.
But like, I just logically, like more people will be like found out. Right? I mean, that's the whole point of doing this, is to make sure that we're, you know, covering our butts with insurance costs and making sure people aren't smoking
And
that.
hopefully
So,
what we're hoping for is that it's preventative. If someone cares enough about their housing, that would prevent you from doing it. By the way, we do not know exactly what's going on right now. But when was the last time we had a positive meth test?
Been a few months.
All of the wood, I don't know why, but
right.
having the conversation transparently and on the table at all time, and our residents to know that we're not just ignoring this and pushing it under the rug. I want to say that plays a role.
Sure it does. Yeah, no,
And talking about it, coffee conversations,
Right.
talking about meth detectors, having them out. Now they're in we've had them at 3 different properties now, so.
They're in the lobbies.
Maybe they'd make the switch from meth to fentanyl.
Very possible, which that's the.
Yeah, but if they knew
Once
they
we
were
figure
gonna
out
use
meth,
housing,
and then
they
we got more.
use the meth from there, maybe they will just keep it to the opioids. I don't know. There's always
Let's see, ups and downs of them. And ultimately, bigger conversation, but landlords looking at their criteria. And I just recently heard too that people were moving away from looking at any of their civil background, which is quite shocking to me. And they're just doing criminal, which is another huge change in laws in the last 5 years, right?
They've made it harder to live there.
Yes.
They're on housing.
Yes.
I mean, it's a slippery slope as a landlord. Like, you don't want to go into that territory, that it's disallowed.
So that's why you set your criteria. Susan and I have met about this, and I think we finally have a list to bring up to folks that are interested on a set of criteria that is legal. It could work for people like yourself.
Yeah, I'd be interested because all the onesie-twosie things they keep passing, and you're just like, I don't even know how to screen anyone anymore.
It's getting hard.
It is. It's almost impossible.
It's going to continue too.
What's that?
Discussions we've had with Matt over the legislature, proposing some changes, I don't think it's going to get better.
Not next session.
So if there's a reading that's concerning enough for the LHA to send somebody to go in just for that person's safety or whatever, like who's going in, and is it like, do you envision sort of figuring out with the resident a time to come in and do additional testing, or, obviously I just don't want to think of somebody just walking into, an apartment where people are smoking that, like that'd be scary. So just sort of how do you guys envision that going forward, since, obviously we're not sending like police into the room, so like how does LHA gonna do that?
If we have reasonable suspicion to believe in LHA from the get-go, is just taking literally from what we're telling them. Like maybe an officer was in the unit, they saw some paraphernalia, maybe an officer arrested them outside the property and they found paraphernalia and drugs on them. At that point, they would post a notice to go into the unit, and that has nothing to do with me. And we would do our preliminary tests as we have been, and then go off that
Community
reading.
managers do that
Community managers.
currently,
Gotcha, okay.
wearing PPE.
Yeah, okay, that's, yeah, I'm sorry.
And
So,
then, if it
specific, that's what I was
comes
asking
up
about.
positive,
Yeah.
then we bring in the industrial hygienist to do
Okay.
the other one.
When we have that suspicion, I have, it's 2 staff members, one stays at the door, and we have Narcan and everything else too, so.
That's good.
Gloves, booties, full cover suits, whatever we need, so.
We don't need full cover suits. Unless you want to wear them.
There's a unit or 2 we might have needed them, so. We've
It would have
learned.
been good.
Yes, so we have that option.
But that's the problem. When we have come across paraphernalia in the unit, we had no inkling that was going to happen. And then you're going in and turning a unit and it's on the drawers.
Yeah, so that was the current one, the one that we're waiting to be cleaned. Resident was in the paper. She got hit by a car, deceased. We've got possession from the daughter. We went into the unit, and the daughter opened the drawer and found the paraphernalia. So that gave us suspicion to test.
And were you wearing PPE when you went in? You just put it on once
Well,
that
they had
happened?
the gloves on because of the roaches,
Right.
but yeah.
What's the demographic?
With meth?
All over the board.
Everywhere.
Everyone.
Everywhere. I've had seniors, we had a, what was he, 78-year-old, that it was a eviction for hoarding, and we started cleaning out and found
10 plus meth.
meth pipes, bag of meth, like, yeah, had to call Sarah. They weren't even showing up to that one, and had to call her to come pick it up. We've had families, a couple families.
Parents with young kids, 20 to 30-year-olds, it's all over the board. No racial or ethnic pattern to be found, or age.
And you'd find in the private market, there's no socioeconomic differentiation either. It's everyone.
Going back to turning the units, is there a mobile testing unit that you guys would want to throw in the room for a day before you actually go in and clean?
We have
Or change
swab
the
kits.
process?
Like, so we have any suspicion, it's 4 swabs that test the whole unit. And that's what we do if we have any suspicion, they've had criminal activity, might not even be meth, it's just $40 and it just gives us the peace of mind or tells us how we need to proceed. So.
But in that situation where you get in there and you have no idea and you pull the door open, you've already exposed everybody who's been in the room. Is it better just to make it, I don't know what the cost is, so maybe it's cost prohibitive, but you just make that part of your process.
I think wearing gloves and booties should be part of the process regardless of, if we find out, but I don't have 10 eyes yet or 50 arms, so I mean, and I'm kind of saying that jokingly, right? Like, we as a society still have not determined, like, minus if the child's licking a wall that has meth on it, there's a problem, but for the adults that are going into these units that are exposed, there's no medical or scientific anything saying that, that there's
Just being in the presence isn't
Correct.
enough to do.
yeah. Same with looking at the fentanyl piece too. Like, we can go into a unit and someone just smoked fentanyl. That is not going to put you down. It's touching it will put you down. So.
Is there any kind of insurance concerns from employees standpoint?
So the community managers, when you think about property management, you don't think about always, not maybe this group probably does more, but the general public, don't think about the risk that a community manager faces every day. There's some very, very traumatic situations that they witness or are inserted into. And it's on par with, this is what Harold says all the time, it's like on par with public safety. They need to be trained in things that public safety needs to be trained to encounter. So when it comes to that, it's similar insurance coverage that we have on the city side. We also have peer support, and we bring in counseling services if there is a traumatic event, which could be one of many things. It could be coming across somebody that's been deceased for a period of time. It has been stuff that you can't ever unsee in your whole life, or a shooting or something, just like any community resource worker in any community. So we do have the same type of coverage that the city has for anything like that. And all we can really do is be prepared, use PPE, have our training. This is part of the job, and it's a tough one.
You go through. My staff is required to go through quite a few trainings that the city puts on, everything from de-escalation, drugs, the police department puts on. There's a whole laundry list, like even driving, what look for. We just piggyback off the city's training, so anything that would apply to our position that's taught by a police officer, police are involved in, we're taking. So.
Final thing on this lease, when it goes live, I think the mold and moisture disclosure at the bottom needs to be updated. And then the other, this is kind of silly, but should number 4 be number 1? Residents shall not manufacture, use, distribute, instead of they shouldn't tamper with the detector.
And I think you should pull out resident is responsible for the actions of their guests and occupants. and make that one bold too. Because there's a lot of times when people get, well, at least at BCHA, have been
number is that?
right before,
And then before separated out.
been evicted because like their daughter was staying there and using. And then elderly parent who is not a drug user is not on the street.
Yeah.
So
And then just on the third line, the nay should be any, it's just a typo. Of number 4.
I also hate reading text like this from a legal standpoint. Can we fix the text?
Where it looks like it's like a PDF converted to Word and
Oh, yeah.
And then
the spaces
type in
are
a
all
typewriter.
So I took this off of what she sent, and it had a change to Word to PDF to print it without the comments.
Yeah,
So,
you could just run a unformat everything
Yeah.
and redo it. I know it's a pain in the ass, but this is really hard to do.
Oh yeah, we'll make the font bigger, especially for seniors too.
the spacing. Learns.
That's up longer.
Where are we putting the detectors in the units as well?
so the recommendation is to put them, above the door, and, I mean, it would be, I think, property dependent, because if it's a studio, we would probably wanna put it above the doorway to the bathroom. And again, the plate, we need to look at where people are using it most often. Bathrooms, bedrooms, not likely out in the living space unless it's a studio, right? At the suites, it's a little different, so I think it would be unit specific.
And I think earlier you and Harold said that it can pick up stuff going down the hallway
Oh,
as
yes.
well. So that'd be my concern, is kind of getting a false test. Yeah, just because somebody walks by it, how close it is to that hallway.
What
That
I'm
would be my
seeing,
concern.
even if we were to get a small sample, the gas sensor has to be literally taking a sample at that time, and it wouldn't be significant enough to trip us to, it has to be a 60 or above. The other day we had a 10 at Spring Creek, and I was like, that's kind of interesting. So Lisa and I are moving the camera so we can kind of see and go back, and I can see, oh, well, who walked through here at 6:30,
Yeah.
right?
Or in that time frame that they're still in the air. So.
But that wouldn't trigger anything that would be at that number.
A 10, well, no, we would see it, but a 10 is like, I mean, nothing to really, it could be like that person was with someone and it got on their clothing, you know, I mean, what, like 50 to 60 is what we are concerned with.
And that's what we're gonna be setting these
Correct,
corners. If
yes.
it's 50 or 60, that's when we will go.
Correct.
And then we can, if it buzzes, or buzzes, it's not really a buzz, but you know what I mean. If it goes off, we go in, we can do the swap, and if nothing comes up, then we can say maybe it was a waft or something else.
They had somebody, it was on their clothing,
And I get, so anytime it's tampered with or moved, I get an email. So that's what basically that triggers the so-called alarm. It's silent, it's an email, and you can put as many people in the email as you want right now, it's just me. The only thing the only emails I've gotten is when we're taking the batteries out, moving it around, so.
So I know it's proprietary. I don't know how much information I've been able to share with you. But is it pretty much what they're looking for is just like literally just the exhalation or the smoke from smoking meth. Like it's not really looking for anything else. I mean, it could possibly, but not for what we're measuring.
It's the main chemical in methamphetamine.
Gotcha. So it's not, you guys aren't looking at anything other than that.
No.
And then when we're testing, using the test kits and swabs, how, I mean, the unit, I mean, how sensitive are those, I guess, for the smoking of it?
It's pretty
Like,
accurate. Yeah.
if somebody just smokes in the unit, it will pick that up?
Yeah,
at one
it
time?
shows us, it's kind of like a
Residue.
range.
Yeah.
Like it's, the light gets darker, the more there is. It looks like a pregnancy test almost, but the darker it is, the more you have. So,
And then we bring in the hygienist and they can give us
Right.
the actual amount.
so, but we can look at the test and be like, okay, that's nothing. That's not going to test high enough. Like based on all the ones we've done, the areas we've tested, and comparing them to the hygienist test.
Mhm.
We kind of can tell by the number, okay, this is gonna be a very light clean,
Yeah, so if we get a low reading, we'll bring in the other.
to confirm the number, make sure it's below, yeah.
So our vacant unit plan, assuming we make the order of the machines, then what properties are we focusing on? Village Place I know is one, because we're gonna attempt to, if we have, well, this is to be talked about, but if there is contingency left over in the construction budget, we could use some of that to purchase the initial machines. But the problem is, we're gonna have move back in starting as early as March 1st. So if we have them by March 1st, we can start putting them in the clean units and then adding this addendum on when people come back.
Well, at least having new lease at that point, or we're just gonna add the addendum to
We
it?
could just add the addendum in the interim. And because everything in the unit would be new, and we would test and verify that everything is negative, and then, so we could do that. But that means we're ready to go March 1st for the first round. So we got, 12-ish units going March 1st. That was an idea, though, that we had, is using Village Place since it's all new. And then using vacancy. Village. I'm just gonna call it the Village. That's what I'm gonna try and say from now on, so I don't screw it up. And then others, it's just gonna be ad hoc additions when we have unit turns. So that'll be across the properties. We're not planning on focusing on any one property right now, right?
Well, and then really, it goes back to Glenn's comment, like the demographic. We're seeing it in all properties, so it's not like one property.
Treat them all
we
the
need to
same.
Focus on either.
Yeah.
What's the cost for the units, for the alarms?
600, but if we buy them in bulk, they literally go down to about 5 or 550, and then ongoing costs, it depends on how many you have on one. So
It's
with
a
the
monthly.
28, I think it was like a $3,000 ongoing for the 28 for the city. And that's with some reduction of Harold's negotiation.
Is that for the year or?
Yes.
$3,000 for 28 units for 1 year.
And that's for IT,
And about-
management, the data piece, problem solving.
What you look at, the cost is less than what we pay for one unit. Basically, when we have to do all the testing, the cleaning, decon, we're looking, just even the unit right now that's just needs a cleaning, by the time we're done with that, it's low level, we're gonna be out 12 to 15,000.
And that's us, or is that
That's
insurance?
us. No insurance.
That's just, okay.
And have we found any insurance yet, Kendra?
They pretty much said that because of all the claims we've had, even going with the pollution, more than likely it would be.
You're not a money
Because
maker.
we have too many claims.
Oh, so we're done with,
They stayed,
okay.
they took away our meth coverage.
Will they reinstate it if you hit a certain percentage of units being monitored or something?
I don't know, most don't get it, so it sounds like we were pretty fortunate to have it. But they have to look at their risk factors, so whoever they're actually insuring at the time, if their population, which our insurance company is all housing authorities, that's who they insure, they could be seeing a risk across the board, and so it wouldn't just be us, it's their full risk. that
So
they're
even if we can show them, once we've got the detectors in place and our claims go down, they might still be using an algorithm that doesn't take that into account. We've tried to have a conversation with them. We want to do this, but we don't want you to be alarmed, no pun intended. And they just were like, we just don't know. We just don't know enough. And we knew that they were worried that if we just started testing units randomly, that we would have a spike, and they don't want to be around for that part. So that wasn't a very successful conversation. It seems to be an industry-wide problem that we'd have to solve. It's not just us. So we will certainly try again once we know that our claims have been reduced or we've got this pretty locked in.
Yeah, but at that point,
it
I
may
mean,
not
if
make
we're
a
monitoring
difference.
it,
We might
we'd just be
have-
self-insured at that point. Why
Right.
go out and seek other insurance?
Or pay extra for the additional.
Right.
Well,
So-
technically, it only covered one, because you had a cap of $100,000, so that's one
Yeah.
unit, that's really bad, so,
One tear down,
yeah.
But if you're actively monitoring it,
Yeah.
the
that's the goal, is to minimize that.
So the detectives themselves, they feed data back to the manufacturer.
Back to the reporting software that the manufacturer gives to us.
Does the manufacturer have access to the data?
Yep. I assume.
It's their IP, right, essentially saying that, right?
They own it, or
They own it probably.
Yeah,
We
they
have
own
a
it,
revocable
and that's
license
why we
to
have
use
that
it.
license, an ongoing cost every year.
so is there any restriction on what they can do with the data?
The city contracts these days are pretty robust about data sharing and making sure that we had to we had to confirm that the pieces that go into these detectors were not manufactured in certain places in the world, for example. So the city side of contracting is pretty on top of that.
And there should be no identifiable data.
No, there's not.
It's not tied to a person, so.
Anything else? Matt?
Feel good with all the notes for comments?
Do you need a number of days, what's the number of days that we're gonna be responding to test sets? I don't do that.
I thought I saw, it says within blank hours of
Yeah,
positive
blank
test
hours,
results.
72, like just 3 days or something, or do we want?
Yeah, do we want, that's a blank,
The attorney left
Trying to
it
be
blank for many reasons.
flexible.
Yes, and that's ultimately it. Like, if it's an extension, like, if it's we need in there 48 hours, like, it could be that we have circumstances that
Some
management
properties
might
you
want
might
to
want
be in
the
before the 72.
Police might want to be 24.
But you'll
But if
be
it says
consistent.
within,
Yeah.
We should be
within.
consistent
Yeah.
then across at least a property.
Yeah.
I think it's talking about maximum, right?
Yeah.
So, I was thinking just a weekend, so it's like, I think
Right.
within 72 hours maybe.
Yeah, if we're saying within, then it is a maximum, and we could just put something in, and then
We could be there within
we're
hours.
still
We
covered,
gotta-
right, if we did it.
Positive test, yeah. Do we
Discuss
gotta,
this.
well, the other thing is, do we have to give them a notice as well in order to get into the unit? We might
You
need,
do have to give them a notice to enter a unit.
yes.
So if you're in the unit and you see meth pipes, what do you do, Lisa?
If you're in the unit for a already, you've
Oh,
already
yeah,
done the
I'm more
noticing.
talking about the alarm. The alarm goes off,
Oh.
do we need to give notice to them, how long?
You
the
have to
notice
give them
is?
notice to enter, so minimum, whatever the notice is
Yeah.
per the lease, 24 hours.
Okay,
Maximum 3 days.
right.
But we don't have to tell them the alarm went off.
Yeah.
We can say that we can give the proper notice.
And go in. And we don't have to tell them why we're going in.
It's just what would you call it, a
24-hour notice of inspection.
because they would get rid of
Clean up.
evidence.
There is
Paraphernalia.
chemicals on the open market you can use to help lessen, yes, that.
I'm sorry, I know this is part of the board commission. When is that?
Board of Commissioners, January 7th.
January 16th. This will go to the board. Yeah. Simple green, right?
And I can send that schedule.
There's no meeting this month.
For both fabulous, so I'm like, oh, could you please
On to number 7, resident quality of life. Anybody have anything for this?
That's down.
Alright, let's go on to number 8, LHA report, update on operation, occupancy report.
So, properties ended in November, about 95% occupied. We're renting, but not at a fast pace right now with the weather, and a lot of people don't want to move this time of year with the holidays and everything, so we are trying to get people lined up on the back burner. Austin Meadows neighborhood, I currently have 3 units down for meth. Those all require some type of little bit of rebuild. One is the one that we've been working on for almost 2 years. It's coming along, it's getting drywall, doc work and everything else, so hopefully that one's online back before, right around the first of the year. Actually, hopefully all these are back online right around the first of the year. Senior, we have 5 vacants, but I got 3 rented. Fall River, they've actually rented all of theirs that were vacant. So we're hoping to end the year pretty good. It's just trying to work around people's holiday schedules at the moment.
Any chance they can be done by the end of the year? What? The only reason I say that is tax
Yes.
credits come into play.
Yeah, so
So the sooner we can, if they're it's just a few more things left to do, I mean, it's a lot. It's probably not.
yeah, so the 2 units, we may just do in-house for Aspen neighborhood because they're not too much and what the contractors want. Patrick thinks he can take care of it. Patrick and Dave can do it in-house faster.
I'm just throwing that out.
I remember
know,
last year, we were worried about, investors were worried about, our rent-ready rates for their tax credit. Because you can't have a tax credit on it for a whole year.
So technically these meth ones, they've been cleaned, so they are habitable with what needs to be done. So,
yeah, they're just not there.
yeah, so they're not down. So. The only one that's down is that B2 still.
At A.
Yes, so everybody else, we can get that. I know what you're asking. So.
I just know we went round and round last year.
Yes.
Fall River.
Yes. So, still have a few units down for meth. We have 7312. I believe that one should be almost done. So that one should be back online by the end of the year as well. 7330, we do got the clean bids in now, so. And the firewood ones will be done by the end of the year. Very immaculate.
Nice. Who's responsible for that?
Firewood?
Being immaculate.
It's CRC. Sarah and I met the one lady. She worked for LHAAB way back early 2000s. She was at the Metro Denver Apartment Association orientation we went to. So we had to bid it out and
Is a clean or what
rebuild.
does she have to do? Rebuild.
two rebuilds at Firewood. So
Let's go on to public health and safety updates.
Just to note, we didn't do property updates just because everything that we reported last month, we haven't done much until holidays. So.
Knock on wood, things have been good. Senior properties have been super quiet. And the suites, just pretty steady, but just, dealing with MHP, dealing with some residents that are kind of, up and down in their days, so having good ones and bad ones. But I think overall, we're really trying to find out just if MHP is starting to use this ROI that everyone's spent a lot of time doing, so we're waiting to hear back about that. You didn't hear anything when you asked?
no, she said,
Waiting on Andy.
Yeah.
So, everyone has signed this and kind of verified it, so I think it's back in MHP's lap, and we'll circle back with that. But really getting those ROIs when needed will help all of us strategize to assist these folks when they're spiraling.
Does everyone know what we're saying when we say ROI? The release of information.
And I apologize for not getting yearly calls for service in detail for you. I have not had a chance to do that, but my plan, if you are interested, I can have that for January. So we can kind of do a recap of the last couple of years and dive into a little bit of what we've been seeing more and less of. I think that'd be
would you be
great.
able to pull out your, because I know you show in the calls for service when you go out to do follow-ups or you're at coffee conversations, and how many of those were you on site too?
So, absolutely.
I think that would show your involvement and.
Right, diving into the data and kind of when people think of an overall call for service being super high, well, that's not really the case. And we were able to really articulate that to even public safety staff regarding an issue recently, looking at calls for service on some businesses and diving into the data and seeing what calls you're actually going on. So I'll get that ready for January.
I guess I did this too, is people talking about the 3 mental health clinicians too, to be added in 2024. Are we started posting those yet, or is it?
Yeah, so Human Services is taking the lead on that, and I just got an update, I was gonna see what it was. I think that they've finished the job descriptions, they needed to re-benchmark the clinician one, because they just knew that the salary needed to be looked at, and,
That changes. You guys let me know if it's changed, 'cause that's
it
why.
needs to still go through HR for benchmarking. Okay, yeah, I will follow up. It looks like she sent our job descriptions to HR, one for benchmarking, and I think we're gonna just be finalizing these job descriptions and the pay rates here in the next couple weeks, and then probably at this rate, because HR and benchmarking takes some time, probably posting in January is what I anticipate is gonna be happening.
For the resource position that we're hiring for the senior sites, we have 4 interviews this afternoon.
So this is the one that's not the clinician, it's the position that we have had, and we are focusing it off of the suites and onto just the typical properties, to be accessible for more residents. So that one, it's all in LHA, wheelhouse, court, working with senior services to help hire that one.
Update from ED, I'm assuming we kind of covered everything.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Go to number 9, other business, anybody have anything else?
I just would like to say that the landscaping at Aspen, Senior, looks very nice. And so I understand the weather and everything now, but what are the plans for getting the rest of the rocks out at the other places?
I have a staff member who's getting bids for a little ride-on thing that Harold's gonna pay for, and then weather permitting, we've actually had quite a few maintenance out with injuries and COVID, so we've been running on a limited staff. So now the plan is hopefully maybe after the first of the year we can, with some nice weather, get to that. So
Yeah, I know the weather has to be
yeah,
good. Yeah.
Weather, and we need the equipment to be able to lift the rocks.
Because those rocks
They're large.
yeah. That's it. This gets right.
Let's adjourn then at 10:22. Next meeting's January 9th.